The giant screen in Times Square went black on a sunny Tuesday morning. Then every screen in the city did the same. Around the world, from Tokyo to London, all broadcasts stopped at once. The silence lasted exactly 30 seconds before a face appeared on every screen on Earth. The face belonged to a tall, muscular woman with steel-gray skin and fierce golden eyes. Her black armor gleamed under bright lights, and various medals covered her chest. She stood straight and proud, like someone used to being obeyed. People of Earth, she spoke in perfect English, her voice deep and commanding. I am Commander Stone of the Valkyrie Empire. We have watched your planet for some time now, and we find you interesting. Above major cities worldwide, massive warships appeared through shimmering portals. Each ship was the size of a small city, shaped like ancient arrowheads, and covered in glowing purple markings. The largest one hung over New York, its shadow darkening Central Park. Commander Stone continued her message. We are warriors. For 10,000 years, we have tested worlds we meet. Those who pass our challenge become our allies. Those who fail. She let the threat hang in the air. In the United Nations Emergency Council room, world leaders gathered quickly. The U.S. president wiped sweat from his forehead. The Chinese premier gripped his chair tightly. The Russian president stared at the ceiling screens, where Commander Stone was still speaking. We request your champions for ritual combat, Stone announced. But we have studied your history. We know that in most of your cultures, males are considered your warriors. She smiled, showing teeth that gleamed like polished metal. So, to make this interesting, we demand male champions only. The room burst into argument. Military advisors shouted suggestions. Scientists waved data tablets. Diplomats tried to talk over each other. On the screens, Stone explained the rules. 3 days. You have 3 days to choose your champions. They will face our warriors in honorable combat. If they win, Earth gains our respect and alliance. If they lose, she paused again, her golden eyes glowing brighter. Well, let's just say you don't want them to lose. Outside the UN building, crowds gathered. Some people panicked, running to stores for supplies. Others stood in the streets, staring up at the massive ships. Police tried to keep order, but they too kept looking at the sky. In the council room, General Roberts from the U.S. slammed his fist on the table. We need our best special forces. Navy SEALs, SAS, Spetsnaz. The Indian representative shook her head. Did you see their ships? Their technology is far beyond ours. Brute force won't work. Then what do you suggest? The French president asked, his voice tired. We have 3 days to find champions who can save Earth, and they must be men because these aliens want to prove some point about gender. In the corner of the room, a quiet aide whispered something to the Secretary General. The old man's eyes widened. He asked the aide to repeat whatever she had said. Then, for the first time since the aliens appeared, he smiled. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, standing up. I believe I have an idea. It's either brilliant or insane, but given our situation, we might need a bit of both. The room fell silent as he explained his plan. At first, there were shocked faces, then arguments, but as he continued talking, showing data on the main screen, the arguments died down. One by one, the world leaders began nodding. Above them, Commander Stone's face still filled the screens. Remember, Earth, 3 days. Choose wisely. The Valkyrie Empire awaits your champions. The transmission ended, leaving the world in silence. But in that quiet UN room, a plan was forming. A plan so unexpected that even the mighty Valkyrie Empire would never see it coming. Earth's response wouldn't be what these warrior women expected. It would be something much, much better. Tom Miller was having a normal morning in his kindergarten classroom when 2 men in black suits walked in. His students were busy with finger painting, and 6-year-old Billy had just managed to get blue paint in his hair again. Mr. Miller, one of the agents said quietly, we need you to come with us. It's about the aliens. Tom looked at his class of 20 kids, all happily making a mess with paint. "I have to finish my day first," he said firmly. "These children are my responsibility." The agents exchanged looks. One spoke into his earpiece, and after a moment, nodded. "Very well. We'll wait." By sunset, Tom found himself in a room deep beneath the UN building. World leaders stared at him from a circular table. The Secretary General stood up and smiled. "Mr. Miller," he said warmly, "thank you for coming. We've been studying your work for the past 2 days." On a large screen behind them, videos played. Tom teaching his students. Tom stopping fights between children. Tom helping angry parents become calm parents. 10 years of his special teaching program, all documented. "Your conflict resolution success rate is extraordinary," the Chinese premier said. 99% of violent incidents prevented. Even the most aggressive children become peaceful under your guidance. Tom shifted in his chair. "They just need someone to listen to them," he said simply. "Everyone does." "That's exactly why we chose you," the Secretary General said. "You see, we've been watching the Valkyrie Empire's broadcasts, their shows of strength, their warrior pride, and we noticed something." The screen changed to show Commander Stone and her warriors. Their fierce poses, their aggressive speeches, their constant challenges. "They're acting like children," Tom said suddenly. "Understanding. Like my kids when they first come to class. All that aggression, it's just fear," the Indian representative finished. "Fear of appearing weak. Fear of change. Fear of being wrong." The Russian president leaned forward. "Mr. Miller, we're not looking for someone to fight their warriors. We're looking for someone to understand them, to help them, like you help your students." Tom watched more footage of the aliens. He saw what others might miss. The younger warriors' uncertain glances, the way some shifted uncomfortably during the most aggressive speeches. The signs were there, just like in his classroom. "You want me to treat an alien empire like a kindergarten class?" he asked. "We want you to be yourself," the Secretary General said. "The champion they least expect, the one they need most." In orbit, aboard the massive Valkyrie flagship, Commander Stone received the message about Earth's chosen champion. She watched Tom's file with growing anger. "A teacher," she roared, "of small children. This is their champion." Lieutenant Thunder, her youngest officer, studied the footage carefully. "Commander, perhaps they're trying to insult us, or trick us." Stone paced the command deck, her armor clicking against the metal floor. "They send this soft man who plays with children against our finest warriors. This will be over in seconds." But something made her pause. In one video, Tom calmly faced down an angry parent twice his size, speaking softly until the man's rage melted away. In another, he stopped a playground fight by making both children laugh. "Prepare the combat arena," Stone ordered finally. "Let them send their teacher. We will show them the difference between playing with children and facing true warriors." Back on Earth, Tom packed his bag. But instead of weapons, he filled it with his teaching supplies. Crayons, stickers, his special talking stick, and his favorite Peace Corner pillows. "Are you sure about this?" an agent asked, watching him pack. Tom smiled, the same smile he gave worried parents on the first day of school. Sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one who doesn't need to prove their strength. As his transport lifted off toward the Valkyrie ship, Tom reviewed his new student files. Only this time, instead of children's names, they contained information about an entire alien empire. It was going to be his most interesting class yet. The Valkyrie ship's combat arena was massive. Metal walls rose 50 feet high, and bright purple lights cast harsh shadows across the floor. Thousands of warrior women filled the viewing stands, their armor gleaming, their voices a low rumble of anticipation. Tom walked into the arena carrying his blue canvas teaching bag. He wore what he always wore to class: brown pants, a comfortable sweater with patches on the elbows, and his lucky teaching shoes, scuffed but reliable sneakers covered in cartoon stars his students had drawn. Commander Stone's voice boomed through the arena. Humans, you mock our sacred combat tradition by sending this teacher. Hello, Tom called up cheerfully, waving at her viewing box. You have a wonderful space here. The acoustics are amazing. He looked around, nodding, though it could use some color, and maybe some comfortable seating. The warriors muttered in confusion as Tom began unpacking his bag. He laid out colorful cushions in a circle, put up a few posters about feelings, and set up his Peace Corner sign, complete with twinkling lights. Lieutenant Thunder stepped into the arena, her battle armor bristling with weapons. She stood 7 feet tall, her gray skin rippling with muscles. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. "I'm setting up our conversation space," Tom explained, arranging cushions. "Would you like the blue cushion? It's very comfy. Though you might prefer the red one. It's good for when we're feeling angry or misunderstood." Thunder's hand went to her sword. "We are here for combat. For glory. For—" "Oh, perfect timing," Tom interrupted, pulling out his talking stick. It was a simple wooden rod decorated with ribbons and peaceful quotes. "This is important. Whoever holds the talking stick gets to speak, and everyone else listens. Would you like to go first?" In the stands, younger warriors leaned forward with interest. Some older ones gripped their weapons tighter, but their eyes showed confusion rather than anger. Commander Stone's voice crackled through the arena again. "This is an insult. Begin the combat." "You know," Tom said thoughtfully, still holding out the talking stick, "in my classroom, when someone shouts from across the room instead of joining our circle, it usually means they're feeling left out. Commander, would you like to join us down here?" A shocked silence fell over the arena. No one had ever spoken to Commander Stone like that before. Lieutenant Thunder's mouth fell open. "I will not be lectured by a human teacher," Stone's voice boomed. "That's okay," Tom said calmly. "Sometimes it takes time to feel comfortable sharing. Lieutenant Thunder, would you like to sit? You must be tired from carrying all that heavy armor." Thunder looked up at Stone's viewing box, then back at the cushions. Against her warrior training, she found herself curious. "Our combat rituals are sacred," she said, but her voice carried a hint of uncertainty. "Let's talk about that," Tom said warmly. He sat down on a cushion and patted the one next to him. "What makes them sacred to you?" To everyone's surprise, including her own, Thunder sat down. The cushion was indeed very comfortable. "Our ancestors began these rituals 10,000 years ago," she began, finding herself holding the talking stick. "That's a very long time," Tom nodded encouragingly. "It must be important to honor such old traditions. But tell me, do you ever wonder if traditions can grow and change, just like people do?" Up in her viewing box, Commander Stone gripped her command chair so hard it creaked. This was not how combat was supposed to go. But across the arena, she saw warriors putting away their weapons, leaning forward to listen. Thunder looked at the talking stick in her hands, then at Tom. "Sometimes," she admitted quietly, "I think about how we could be strong without always fighting." Tom smiled. "That sounds like a wonderful thing to discuss." He pulled out a packet of cookies, his special ones that always helped scared kids feel better. "Would you like a cookie while we talk? Sharing food helps us share ideas." The greatest battle in Valkyrie history was about to begin. But it wouldn't be fought with weapons. It would be won with words, understanding, and chocolate chip cookies. 2 hours had passed in the combat arena, but not a single punch had been thrown. Instead, the talking circle had grown. Lieutenant Thunder sat cross-legged on her blue cushion, her armor loosened at the joints for comfort. 5 other young warriors had joined them, forming a small circle on the arena floor. "So you're saying," Thunder spoke carefully, holding the talking stick, "that on Earth, strength is measured in many ways, not just combat." Tom nodded, offering another cookie to a young warrior named Swift who had just shared her story. "Exactly. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is listen, or admit we're wrong. or try something new even when it's scary. Commander Stone's voice crackled through the arena again, but it had lost some of its thunder. This is not combat. This is. Commander, Tom called up warmly, we're discussing different types of courage. Your perspective would be very valuable. The purple cushion is still free. A murmur ran through the watching warriors. Nobody had ever invited Commander Stone to sit on a cushion before. The very idea seemed impossible. Thunder twisted the talking stick in her hands. In training, they tell us that change is weakness. That questioning tradition dishonors our ancestors. She looked up at Tom. But I keep thinking about my younger sister. She left the warrior path to become a healer. We're not supposed to speak of her anymore. That must hurt, Tom said gently. Missing your sister. Tears, something no warrior was supposed to show, glinted in Thunder's golden eyes. She was so happy helping others. Maybe that was her way of being strong. From the stands, more young warriors descended to the arena floor. They formed a larger circle, some sitting awkwardly in their armor, others removing pieces to get comfortable. Tom pulled more cushions from his seemingly bottomless teaching bag. In my classroom, Tom explained, passing the talking stick to Swift, we have a saying. Different flowers grow in different ways, but each one makes the garden more beautiful. Swift's voice shook as she spoke. I always wanted to be an artist, to create beauty, but they said warriors only destroy. That's not true, Thunder suddenly exclaimed. Then she blushed, remembering the rules. Sorry, I should wait for the talking stick. Tom smiled. That was worth interrupting for. Why isn't it true, Thunder? The young lieutenant sat straighter. Our greatest warriors of old didn't just destroy. They built our first cities. They wrote our laws. Her eyes widened with realization. They created things too. A new voice cut through the arena. The talking stick. May I have it? Everyone looked up. Commander Stone stood at the edge of the circle. Her armor, usually polished to perfection, showed signs of wear. Her face, always fierce in broadcasts, now held something else. Uncertainty. Thunder quickly offered her the talking stick. Stone sat down heavily on the purple cushion, making it flatten completely under her armor. My grandmother, Stone began, her voice softer than anyone had ever heard it. She told me stories about how our empire began not with conquest, but with protection. We were defenders first, builders. But somewhere, over the generations, we forgot. Tom reached into his bag one last time. He pulled out a box of crayons and some paper. Sometimes, he said, placing them in the center of the circle, when words are hard to find, drawing helps. Would anyone like to draw their vision of what the Valkyrie Empire could be? Stone looked at the crayons like they were alien artifacts. Thunder picked up a blue one with wonder. Swift grabbed a whole handful, her face lighting up. Around them, more warriors descended from the stands. The circle grew larger. Armor clinked as warriors sat down, picked up crayons, and began to draw. In the center of it all, Tom smiled. This was familiar. Every new school year started this way, with walls coming down, with trust being built, with hearts opening to new possibilities. The greatest victory wasn't changing the Valkyrie Empire. It was helping them change themselves. The combat arena no longer looked like a place of battle. Colorful drawings covered the metal floor. Warriors sat in groups, sharing crayons and stories. Some had removed their armor completely, revealing casual clothes underneath that they usually hid. Commander Stone held up her drawing with uncertain hands. This was my grandmother's garden, she explained. Before she became Supreme Commander, she grew flowers from 100 worlds. I used to play there as a child. What happened to it? Tom asked gently, noting how the other warriors listened intently. We turned it into a training ground. Stone's voice carried an edge of regret. It was said that gardens showed weakness. That beauty had no place in a warrior's life. Lieutenant Thunder studied her own drawing. a picture of her sister healing an injured bird. "We've thrown away so much in the name of strength," she said softly. Suddenly, the arena doors burst open. 3 elder warriors strode in, their ancient armor decorated with battle marks. They stopped short at the sight before them. "What is this disgrace?" the eldest, General Rage, demanded. "Commander Stone, explain yourself." The younger warriors scrambled to their feet, but Tom remained seated calmly. He noticed how Stone gripped her drawing tighter instead of dropping it. "General," Stone said, standing slowly, "we are learning about different forms of strength." "Strength." Rage spat the word. "You sit on cushions, draw pictures, share feelings like weak children." Tom raised his hand, just as he did in class when students got too loud. To everyone's surprise, the general fell silent. "May I share something?" Tom asked. "In my classroom, when someone shouts, we ask them what they're really afraid of." The arena went completely still. No one had ever suggested that a Valkyrie general was afraid of anything. "Afraid?" Rage's voice shook with anger. "I fear nothing. I have won 1,000 battles. And yet," Tom said kindly, "you fear change so much that you would rather shout than listen, rather fight than understand." Thunder stepped forward, her drawing still in hand. "General, look at what we've discovered. Our history, it's more than just battles. We were creators once, builders, healers." Other warriors began holding up their drawings. Pictures of gardens, libraries, hospitals, dreams they'd never dared share before. "This is corruption," Rage declared. "The human has poisoned your minds." "No," Stone said firmly, straightening to her full height. "He helped us remember who we truly are." She turned to face her warriors. "How many of you have hidden talents because they weren't warrior enough? How many have sisters, daughters, friends who left because they didn't fit our narrow view of strength?" Hands raised across the arena. Even some of Rage's own honor guard lifted their hands slowly. "This is our real battle," Stone continued. "Not against humans, not against other worlds, but against the cage we built around ourselves." Tom stood up, holding out the talking stick to General Rage. "Every good teacher knows that the hardest person to teach is often the one who thinks they know everything. But they're also the ones who, when they finally learn, can teach others the most." Rage stared at the talking stick. Her hand trembled slightly. "Tell us, General," Tom encouraged. "What did you love before they told you warriors could only love battle?" The mighty general's voice came out barely above a whisper. I used to sing songs of our people's history, but they said music made warriors soft." Stone stepped forward, taking both the talking stick and her mentor's hand. "Then sing for us, General. Show us that the strongest warriors are those brave enough to be themselves." As Rage's ancient song slowly filled the arena, Tom watched transformation spread across faces young and old. This was what he'd seen countless times in his classroom. The moment when walls crumbled, when truth broke free, when hearts opened to new possibilities. The real battle wasn't about changing the Valkyries. It was about helping them remember who they were always meant to be. News spread through the Valkyrie fleet like wildfire. Warriors gathered around view screens showing live feeds from the combat arena. What they saw shocked them. Their legendary General Rage was teaching young warriors an ancient battle hymn, but she had transformed it into a song of peace. Commander Stone stood on the arena's central platform, her armor replaced by a simple uniform. "My fellow warriors," her voice carried across the ship's communication systems. "Today we make history not through combat, but through courage of a different kind." In the background, Tom helped Thunder and Swift set up what they called a show and share area. Warriors lined up, each bringing something they had hidden away as unworthy of a warrior. A young cadet named Spark brought forward complex mathematical equations she had been solving in secret. "I always wanted to design ships, not just fight in them," she admitted. An older warrior revealed beautiful tapestries she had woven, telling stories of their people's history. My grandmother taught me before the art was banned, she explained, tears in her eyes. Lieutenant Thunder stood up next. I call my sister today, she announced. We invite all healers, artists, and scholars who were forced to leave to come home. A warrior's strength can take many forms. On hundreds of Valkyrie worlds across the galaxy, the broadcasts reached millions. Messages flooded back, stories of hidden talents, secret dreams, and hopes for change. Tom watched it all from his cushion circle, now permanently installed in what they had renamed the Hall of New Beginnings. He smiled as Commander Stone sat beside him. Did you plan this? She asked quietly. Did Earth know this would happen? Tom shook his head. We just knew that sometimes the greatest battles aren't won with weapons. They're won with understanding. General Rage, who had spent the last hour teaching young warriors the proper way to hold a paintbrush, approached them. The Council of Elders is demanding an explanation, she said. They say we've gone soft. Then let them come see, Stone replied firmly. Let them see how our warriors now stand straighter because they don't carry the weight of hidden shame. Let them see how we grow stronger by embracing all our talents. As if on cue, a group of warriors demonstrated their new training program. They'd moved through traditional combat forms, but now each movement flowed into art, music, or mathematical equations projected in the air. It was battle and beauty, strength and grace, all in one. On Earth, Tom explained, watching the display, we have a saying. A tree with strong roots laughs at the storm. You're not becoming weak. You're reconnecting with your roots, growing stronger than ever. The arena doors opened again. The Council of Elders, 12 of the oldest and most decorated warriors in the Empire, entered. They watched in silence as young warriors showed them art made from old weapons, as engineers revealed designs for ships that could explore rather than conquer, as healers demonstrated how ancient battle techniques could be used to save lives. The head elder raised her hand for silence. Everyone held their breath. In all my centuries, she began slowly, I have never seen our warriors stand so tall, speak so true, or show such strength. She turned to Tom. You came here not to fight us, but to free us from ourselves. Tom stood and offered her a crayon. Would you like to share what you dream of, Elder? It's never too late to begin again. The ancient warrior took the crayon with trembling fingers. Slowly, she began to draw. Others gathered around, watching as she sketched the Valkyrie Empire not as it was, but as it could be. A civilization of warriors who protected art, knowledge, and growth. Commander Stone picked up Tom's talking stick one last time. Today, she announced, we write a new chapter in our history. Today, we prove that the greatest victory comes not from defeating others, but from freeing ourselves. Through the giant windows of the arena, Earth shone like a blue jewel. Tom looked at it and smiled. Sometimes the best lessons came from the most unexpected teachers, and sometimes the strongest warriors were the ones brave enough to change. 1 month after the battle that never was, the Valkyrie flagship hovered over New York City again. This time, instead of casting shadows of fear, it sparkled with lights and decorations. Colorful banners hung from its sides, showing art created by warrior artists. Inside the United Nations building, Tom sat in his usual comfortable sweater while Commander Stone addressed the world leaders. She had traded her battle armor for an elegant uniform that combined traditional warrior symbols with new designs representing peace and growth. People of Earth, Stone spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the globe. We came here seeking combat. Instead, you taught us about true strength. The Valkyrie Empire would be honored to become your allies, not in war, but in learning. The Secretary General smiled. And what of the ritual combat that was supposed to determine Earth's fate? Lieutenant Thunder, standing beside Stone, stepped forward. We believe Earth won, not by fighting, but by showing us a better way to be strong. Applause filled the chamber. On screens worldwide, people celebrated. But the biggest changes were happening on the Valkyrie ships above. The combat arena, once a place of battles, had become the first Valkyrie Arts and Learning Center. Warriors who had hidden their talents for years now taught classes there. General Rage's singing classes were particularly popular, especially among the younger cadets. Next week, Thunder announced to the UN Assembly, "My sister returns from exile to open our first healing center. Already, 1,000 young warriors have signed up to learn both combat and healing arts." Tom watched proudly as his former students shared their achievements. Swift had started a galaxy-wide art program for warrior children. Spark's new ship designs combine beauty with function, creating vessels meant to explore and discover rather than conquer. Commander Stone raised her hand, calling for attention. "But our greatest announcement is this. The Valkyrie Empire is transforming. We will keep our strength, our discipline, and our pride. But now we add to it wisdom, creativity, and understanding." She turned to Tom. "Earth sent us not their strongest fighter, but their wisest teacher. And so we ask, will Tom Miller help us create the first Valkyrie human school of peace and growth?" Tom stood, straightening his sweater with its familiar patched elbows. "I would be honored," he said, "though I have one condition." The assembly held its breath. Stone raised an eyebrow. "Name it." "We need more crayons," Tom said with a serious face. "A lot more crayons." Laughter filled the chamber, but it was warm and understanding. Even the most serious diplomats smiled. Back in Tom's kindergarten classroom, his students had decorated the walls with pictures of their new alien friends. Billy, still prone to getting paint in his hair, had drawn Commander Stone teaching art classes. "Mr. Miller," Stone said as the ceremony ended, "you once told me that sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one who doesn't need to prove their strength. We understand that now." The head elder, who had filled an entire art gallery with her rediscovered paintings, nodded in agreement. "For 10,000 years, we thought we were building an empire of warriors. Now we know we were always meant to be an empire of teachers and learners too." As Tom packed up his teaching supplies for his first day at the new Valkyrie Human School, he found a crayon drawing at the bottom of his bag. It was Stone's first picture, the one of her grandmother's garden. She had added to it, showing the garden restored and full of students learning among the flowers. Earth had faced its greatest challenge not with weapons or warriors, but with understanding and patience. The mighty Valkyrie Empire had been transformed not by force, but by the simple wisdom found in a kindergarten classroom. And somewhere in space, a young Valkyrie cadet was learning that the strongest battle cry might just be a children's song about peace, sung by an old general who had finally remembered how to smile.